It happened on a street that wasn't famous, glamorous, or even particularly clean. Just an ordinary marketplace road, the kind lined with flickering bulbs, sizzling food carts, and humble voices trying to make ends meet. But on this day, one voice would roar loud enough to freeze the entire block, and another voice, quieter, older, wiser, would cut through that roar like a lightning bolt. But first, everything began with a moment so small that most people would have ignored it. A vendor's hand, shaking, not from fear, but from exhaustion. His name was Sanjay Patel, a 63-year-old widower who had run his tiny street food stall for nearly 3 decades. He sold simple things: spiced peanuts, roasted corn, fresh lime juice, small comfort foods for people who understood struggle. His cart was nothing extraordinary. A wooden frame, a rusted umbrella, a hand-painted sign that read, "Honest snacks, honest prices." Every morning, he wiped the dust off the old wheels. Every afternoon, he served smiles with the same care he used to serve food to his late wife. Every evening, he counted the coins that would hopefully cover rent, medicine, and tomorrow's groceries. But today wasn't like other days. Today, he faced something worse than slow sales. Worse than the heat. Worse than loneliness. Today, he faced entitlement, the kind wrapped in money, dripping in arrogance, and wearing sunglasses more expensive than everything on his cart combined. Enter Blake Harrison. 35, American, self-proclaimed luxury travel influencer, which basically meant he filmed himself complaining about things he barely understood for views, the kind of tourist who didn't look at a country. He looked down on it, but he strutted through the market like he owned it, silk shirt half open, a gold chain glinting under the sun, expensive cologne fighting with the smell of fresh food in the air. His camera crew followed him, filming everything. And that's when he saw Sanjay's cart. At first, his face showed mild curiosity. Then disgust. He stopped, squinting as if the small stall personally offended him. "What is this?" he scoffed loudly, voice echoing down the street. A few vendors turned. Some sighed. They had seen tourists like him. But Sanjay simply smiled, a tired but honorable smile. "Fresh roasted peanuts, sir," he said softly, adjusting the pan. "Only 10 rupees. Very good. Very fresh." Blake laughed, not kindly, not politely. The kind of laugh people use when they want the whole world to know they think they're superior. 10 rupees. He sneered. "For peanuts cooked in this filthy thing?" He pointed at the old pan, at the cart, at Sanjay. The elderly vendor's hand paused for a moment, but still, he smiled. "It is clean, sir. I clean everything myself, with boiling water. Every day." Blake leaned closer, wrinkling his nose dramatically for the camera. "Dude, this is disgusting. I mean, look at this place. Who eats from here? You could get sick just breathing this air." The camera zoomed in on his exaggerated expression. Sanjay continued stirring, desperate to stay calm. A few onlookers began whispering. Some pulled out phones. Others shook their heads, embarrassed. Still, Sanjay tried. "Please, sir," he said with gentle dignity. "This is my livelihood. If you do not want to buy, it is okay. But do not insult." Blake cut him off. "Insult?" He laughed. "Buddy, I'm doing you a favor. Tourists need to know not to waste money on trash like this. Honestly, it's a miracle your cart hasn't been shut down yet." Sanjay's throat tightened, but he stayed polite. Always polite. Then Blake made the mistake that changed everything. He picked up Sanjay's peanut scoop, the one the vendor kept spotless, inspected it, and dropped it on the ground like garbage. Gasps filled the air. A couple of nearby vendors stepped forward, ready to intervene. But before anyone could say a word, Blake raised his voice to the camera. "This is what I mean, guys. This place is a joke. Trash food, trash hygiene, trash service." Then he pointed right at the elderly man's face. "And trash vendors." Sanjay's shoulders trembled, not from anger, from humiliation. His late wife's necklace rested under his shirt. She had given it to him the day they bought their first cart. He had promised her he would always run their business with dignity. But right now, this tourist was tearing that dignity apart in front of dozens of eyes. Sanjay bent down to pick up the scoop, but Blake stepped forward, blocking him, smirking down like a king watching a servant bow. "You know what?" Blake said loudly. "Let me talk to whoever runs this dump. This whole area needs to get shut down." And then, from the far end of the street, came a voice, calm, Firm. Carrying authority like a quiet thunderstorm. That is enough. Everyone turned. Blake froze. Sanjay straightened. Vendors stepped back. Walking down the street was a tall, middle-aged man in a crisp button-down shirt and rolled-up sleeves. No security. No entourage. Just purpose in every step. People moved aside instinctively. A few vendors whispered his name. Mayor Rishi Verma. The mayor of the entire city, known for fairness. Respected by rich and poor alike. Feared by rule breakers. But what made the moment electric wasn't his arrival. It was where he walked. He didn't walk toward Blake. He walked straight to the elderly vendor, straight to Sanjay. He stopped beside him, looked at the dirty scoop on the ground, then looked back at the trembling old man. Mr. Patel, the mayor said kindly. Did he hurt you or your business in any way? Sanjay opened his mouth, but no words came. Tears pricked his eyes. Blake scoffed, stepping forward. Excuse me, who even are you to interrupt? The mayor raised a hand. Not angrily, not dramatically, just enough. Blake fell silent. The entire street held its breath. Mayor Verma turned toward the tourist. Expression calm but cold as steel. You may not realize it, he said slowly, but you just insulted one of the most respected vendors in this city. Sanjay's eyes widened. The crowd murmured. Blake blinked in disbelief. The mayor stepped closer, just close enough for the camera to catch every word. And now, he continued, you will learn exactly who you're speaking to and what this vendor means to us. The street froze. Blake swallowed. The camera zoomed in because the next sentence the mayor said would flip the entire situation upside down. The mayor didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He didn't lecture. He spoke with the calm, controlled firmness of a man who knew the power of truth and the weight of history. Mr. Patel, Mayor Verma said, turning to the elderly vendor with a respectful nod, has been feeding this community for 30 years. Long before the fancy cafes. Long before tourists discovered this street. Long before half the people judging him today were even born. A hush washed over the crowd. Sanjay's chin quivered. He'd never heard praise spoken about him so openly. But Blake stepped forward, scoffing again, trying to keep the spotlight on himself. Listen, man, mayor, whatever, this isn't about history. I was just giving an honest review. The mayor raised a brow. A review? He repeated. Is that what you think this is? Blake smirked. Yeah. My viewers rely on me to expose low-quality places. Mayor Verma inspected the foreigner's camera crew, too. Young men looking uncomfortable now that the heat was on them. And do your viewers rely on you, he continued, to humiliate elderly workers? To insult honest labor? To mock people who are simply trying to survive? The camera crew exchanged glances. For the first time, Blake looked unsure. Still, he doubled down. Look, I didn't mean anything personal. But this guy needs to meet basic standards if he wants to serve people like me. The mayor turned his head sharply. People like me. Those words sparked something. Not anger, but disappointment. The kind of disappointment that cuts deeper than yelling. Mayor Verma stepped closer, placing one hand gently on the cart's worn wooden counter. This vendor has fed thousands of people without a single health complaint, he said. Doctors, teachers, police officers, students, travelers, and even me. The crowd gasped. Blake froze. The mayor continued, voice soft but echoing with sincerity. I grew up on these peanuts. Gasps turned into murmurs. Several older locals nodded as memories resurfaced. The mayor touched the cart lovingly with his fingertips. When I was a broke student, he said, I came here almost every afternoon. Mr. Patel always gave me extra peanuts, even when I clearly couldn't afford them. Sanjay swallowed hard. His hands trembled, not from weakness, but from emotion. The crowd leaned in as Mayor Verma went on. When I failed my first civil service exam, he said, I walked to this very cart, feeling like a failure. Mr. Patel didn't ask why I was upset. He didn't pry. He simply handed me a paper cone of warm peanuts and said, no exam decides your worth. Try again. Some people's eyes glistened. Even nearby vendors paused what they were doing. And I did try again. The mayor continued softly. And again, because sometimes the kindness of strangers becomes the fuel for our future. He turned to the camera, addressing Blake's audience directly. You want to show the world something? He said. Show them this. The mayor pointed at the vendor, at the trembling hands holding on to dignity. At the cart that had survived storms, inflation, grief, and disrespect. Show them a man who wakes before sunrise every day. A man who has never cheated a customer. A man who serves food with the same love he served his family. Blake's jaw tightened. I get it. He's a nice old guy. But come on. This cart is outdated. The pan is old, and so is wisdom. The mayor interrupted sharply. And kindness. And humility. A ripple of applause started somewhere in the back. Then it spread. Vendors. Shoppers. Children. Even tourists. The only person not applauding was Blake. His face burned red, not just from embarrassment, but from something he had not expected to face today. Accountability. You think your wealth makes you superior, the mayor said, voice deepening. But money doesn't excuse cruelty. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to disrespect those who work harder than you ever have. Blake looked like he wanted to argue, but his camera crew stepped back, silently signaling, "Man, stop." But the mayor wasn't finished. He bent down and picked up the peanut scoop from the ground, carefully dusting it off, as though it were something precious. Then he handed it back to Sanjay with both hands, bowing his head briefly. A gesture of honor. Sanjay's lips trembled. He clutched the scoop as if someone had just restored a piece of him that had been stolen moments earlier. The mayor turned to the crowd. "Respect," he said, "is not a luxury. It is the bare minimum we owe to one another." People nodded. Some filmed. Others wiped their eyes. Then he faced Blake again. "This city welcomes tourists," he said, "but it does not welcome bullying." Blake swallowed. "Look, mayor, sir. I didn't mean to." The mayor didn't let him finish. "You are free to leave this market," he said calmly. "But before you do, there is something else you need to know." A pause. A heavy pause. Blake blinked, confused. "What now?" Mayor Verma stepped closer, lowering his voice, but somehow making it even more powerful. "Mr. Patel," he said slowly, "not only fed me when I was struggling. He is the man who recommended me for my first part-time job." The crowd reacted with stunned silence. "Yes," the mayor continued. "I worked right here in this market as a teenager. I was hired because this man," he gestured to the elderly vendor, "believed in me when no one else did." Sanjay covered his mouth with his hands, tears slipping free. Blake whispered, "Wait. What?" "And one more thing," the mayor said, his final words dropping like a hammer. "Next month, we are naming this entire stretch of market after him." The street exploded. People cheered. Vendors cried. Some bowed to Sanjay. Children clapped. The camera crew lowered their equipment, completely speechless. The foreign tourist stood frozen, every trace of arrogance melting from his posture. He looked at Sanjay, at the mayor, at the crowd, and for the first time since arriving, he had nothing to say. But the mayor wasn't done. He turned slightly, giving Blake one last chance. "One question," he said. "Do you want to walk away? Or do you want to make this right?" Blake blinked rapidly, caught between pride and guilt. The crowd leaned forward. Sanjay held his breath, and Blake slowly opened his mouth to give an answer no one expected. The late afternoon sun slanted across the street market, casting long, warm beams over the stone walkway. Tourists moved in clusters, the smell of roasted corn and fried dough swirling through the air. But amidst the bustle, a strange silence followed Ethan, a silence made of stares, whispers, and pointed glances, because everyone had seen it. The rich tourist from the resort? The one who yelled at the old street vendor earlier? The one the mayor personally confronted? Yes, that one. Every step Ethan took felt like someone was tightening a belt around his chest. He shoved his hands in his pockets, trying to walk normally, pretending he didn't see the looks, pretending the heat on his cheeks was an embarrassment that he wanted to leave the town. He also wanted to hide. But most of all, he wanted to stop feeling like he was the villain in someone else's story. Behind him, he heard hurried footsteps. "Wait." A woman called. Ethan turned. It was Rosa, the local bakery owner, middle-aged, warm-eyed, wearing the same flour-dusted apron she always had on. She'd been one of the onlookers earlier. She walked toward him now, not angry like he expected, but concerned. "You shouldn't walk alone right now," she said gently. Ethan frowned. "Why?" "Because the whole town hates me." "Because you look pale," Rosa replied. "Sit, please." She gestured to a wooden bench under an olive tree. Ethan hesitated, then finally lowered himself onto it. Rosa sat beside him, smoothing her apron. "You know," she said, This town isn't angry because of what you did. It's angry because of what you reminded us. Ethan blinked. What do you mean? Rosa sighed deeply, eyes drifting toward the market. Tourists come and go. Some are kind. Some are rude. Some are drunk. Some are arrogant. We've seen everything. But what you did to that vendor, Mateo, Ethan flinched at the name. It wasn't just yelling. It was the way you looked at him. The way you talked down to him. It wasn't anger. It was, she hesitated. It was superiority. Her words hit like a hammer to his ribs. I know. Ethan whispered. I messed up. I know I did. Tell me why, Rosa said gently but firmly. You said something must have happened. So what happened? Ethan leaned back, staring at the cobblestones. I lost everything, he murmured. Last month, I lost my company. Investors pulled out. My business partner betrayed me. I had to sell my condo, my car, everything. I came here because, his voice broke. Because I didn't want to be in my city when people found out I wasn't successful anymore. Rosa listened without interrupting. I thought I'd relax, get away from everything. But when Mateo didn't understand my English and I couldn't understand his prices, I snapped. I wasn't angry at him. I was angry at my life. He swallowed hard, and I took it out on him. Rosa nodded slowly. Pain makes people lash out, she said. But you know what makes someone good? What? Who they choose to be after they've already messed up. Ethan closed his eyes. I want to fix it, he whispered. Back at the market when Ethan and Rosa returned, the crowd had thinned. Vendors were packing up, sweeping dust from in front of their stalls. The air held that calm, tired energy of a day ending. Mateo was where he always was, sitting on his wooden stool beside his empty trinket cart, sorting the leftover woven bracelets. He looked smaller in the fading light. Older, tired. Ethan felt shame hit him all over again that he approached slowly. Mateo, he said quietly. The old man looked up, cautious but calm. I came to apologize. Properly. Mateo studied his face carefully. A long silence followed, broken only by the snapping of a tarp in the wind. I know anger, the old vendor finally replied. I know the weight of it. But why did you shout? I did nothing to you. Ethan swallowed. You're right. You didn't deserve any of it. I was overwhelmed. I was afraid of looking weak. And I took that fear out on you. He exhaled. I am sorry. Mateo looked down at his hands. Rosa spoke gently. He means it. The old man nodded, then motioned for Ethan to sit. Ethan lowered himself onto the small crate beside him. You know, Mateo said, eyes softening. I sell to hundreds of tourists every week. Some are kind. Some pretend I do not exist. A few, he smiled faintly, talk to me like I am dirt. Ethan's face burned, but no one ever came back to say sorry. Ethan blinked. Mateo lifted one of the woven bracelets from his box. The same one Ethan had yelled about earlier. It is yours, the old man said, handing it to him. No. Ethan started. It is not payment, Mateo interrupted. It is forgiveness. Ethan stared at it. The bracelet was simple, blue thread, tiny silver beads, a hand-woven knot. Something so small yet holding so much weight. Thank you, he whispered. Mateo nodded once. Better to lose money than to lose kindness, he said softly. Kindness feeds us longer. But then, the mayor returned as the sun dipped behind the rooftops. Mayor Alonso approached. His steps brisk and purposeful. Ethan stiffened. The mayor stopped in front of them, his hands behind his back. Good, Mayor Alonso said. I see the conversation happened. We talked, Ethan said quietly. And I apologized. And I accepted, Mateo added. The mayor studied Ethan for a long moment, then exhaled. Listen, he said, voice lowering. I came because I need to tell you something. Not as mayor, but as a man who grew up in this town. Ethan braced himself. You reminded us how fragile dignity is, Mayor Alonso said. How fast someone can take it away with one careless moment. Ethan bowed his head, but more importantly, the mayor continued. You also reminded us that people can change, that apologies matter, and that humility is stronger than pride. Ethan's eyes stung. The mayor placed a hand on his shoulder. Your mistake isn't your legacy, he said. How you repair it is. Rosa smiled softly. See? The town doesn't hate you. Ethan let out a shaky breath. I want to help the community somehow, he said. Even though I'm broke now, I want to give back. Maybe use my business experience to help vendors or teach budgeting. But Mateo lifted a hand. Before you help the community, the old vendor said. Help yourself. Ethan looked confused. Mateo smiled. Find your piece again. Then give it away. Ethan felt his throat close. I will, he whispered. Later that night, Ethan walked slowly across the quiet square. The bracelet Mateo gave him pressed lightly against his wrist, each bead a reminder of who he had been and who he wanted to become. As he reached the edge of the market, he turned for one last look. Rosa waved from her bakery doorway. Mateo lifted a hand from his cart. Even the mayor gave him a small nod. In that moment, Ethan realized something. He hadn't come here to escape his life. He had come here to rebuild it, and sometimes the first brick is simply admitting you were wrong. That he walked away, the night warm around him, the sounds of the town settling behind him. That a new beginning, unexpected, humble, and deeply earned, was waiting.